I wasn't even brushing my teeth and washing my face. I didn't have the time. And by the time the day started, I was just so exhausted. It was like, it don't even matter at this point. And that is one of the things that leads into depression, which is one of the things that you and I had an issue with. You wanted me to rub your back. I was so emotionally and mentally scattered. It wasn't computing that you wanted devotion in that moment. You wanted all of me. I hurt your feelings in that moment because I wasn't clear on what the expectation was. And honestly, I don't know that even if I was clear, I was still in a space to give it.
My nigga, everything is love, but that on anything I love. Yeah.
Peace, beloved.
All of the animals are in the house crying right now.
Why?
Except one. Trying to figure out where I'm at. One, my love and affection.
How does that make you feel?
How does that make me feel?
How is it being a pet parent at this stage in the game?
I enjoy it. I enjoy it. It's overwhelming right now, though.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
This stage.
Yeah, it's overwhelming right now. Cleo has had to get a major surgery because she had a very traumatic injury, 2 traumatic injuries. One to where she completely tore her knee apart, and then the other where she completely split her tail in half. And those are both considered traumatic injuries, and she had to have surgery, major surgery on both. So every day for the past, 3 weeks has been giving her about 13 pills.
3 weeks, but it's been about a month and a half.
Yeah.
Since everything first happened, before she even went to the doctor to get the surgery.
Yeah.
That you had to be in complete nurture mode.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wake up every day. I have to ice her leg, massage her leg. At one point, I thought it was infected. It has a lot of fluid and, just doing all the things to make sure she's still okay while she's still active. Trying not to allow her to ruin the leg again. So it's required me to have a lot of patience, a lot of intentionality, a lot of nurturing. It's taught me how to really go to the depths of nurturing someone else outside of myself and to have patience for the many phases of, I guess, healing that another being has to have. And especially when this is a phase of healing that I'm not well versed in. I know what a phase of healing looks like in the emotional healing experience. But in this experience, when it comes to just the body, I don't really know how to show up other than holding space. But now I'm learning how to show up and actually give all of my energy, to the point I didn't know how to give energy to myself or to you. So I'm still learning how to balance showing up for her and showing up for myself and showing up for you in the process. So that's been extremely overwhelming.
Yeah, and there was a couple moments where, a few days probably back to back to back, where at certain points in the day I'm like, you need to cry? Like, yes. You just go in my arms and cry. And at a certain point, I asked you, what do you feel like Cleo's circumstance and Cleo is teaching you right now? You want to share that with the audience?
What did I say? I thought that's what I said, that it was teaching me how to hold space for another person.
It was another lesson too, because you had a lot of fear, you had a lot of anxiety, and of course you was going back and forth through, how in depth the non-healing of the wound was, because her leg was swollen longer than it should have been.
Yeah.
There was new spots showing up and things of that nature that made you very fearful. You remember what you said in response to how much fear you was holding?
Was it about me giving her my fear? Impeding her healing process?
Part of that too, but also your attachment to her well-being, and then doubling down on that. You said the other day, and you was kind of like joking. We was outside, letting her have some outside time, and her temperament is different. We used to her running around all the time, nonstop, and that hasn't been the case because she's been on medication. And remember what you said outside?
I think I said something to the degree of I don't want her to
I don't
be.
want her to grow up. I don't
Yeah.
want her to be serious Cleo going
Yeah.
forward in her life. I miss, the youthful exuberance she used to display before the surgery. So how has that, I guess, factored into what we both been getting smacked in the face with over and over with, which is impermanence?
Yeah.
How has this given you, I guess, more insight and allowed you to dive deeper into impermanence?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have cried, like, I will say for the past 30 days, like every single day I've cried. And I think it's just really brought me closer to or detaching from control and really giving myself to permission to surrender in other aspects of my life. Whereas if it's emotional healing, oh, I can surrender to that. Like, there's no pain in this world that I can feel that I don't have the capacity to surrender to. If I have to die, then I will die to it. I've done it many times. I have no issue doing that. But when it's an outside
Right.
source, it's like, how can I show up? How can I help? How can I change? And it's like, if she was supposed to get her tail amputated, then that was something I would have to surrender to. But I felt myself fighting to make sure I did everything to make sure that didn't happen. And then also seeing her temperament change in the process is really just giving me, I guess, more permission to allow things to be what they are without trying to fear them into the way that I want them to be, without trying to use fear and control to make them into the outcomes that I want them to be. And that's been really difficult.
And I'm not gonna say weird, but it's been interesting. When we built this house, when this house built itself kinda, and we put all different intentions inside the paint on these walls
Yeah.
and sacred geometric patterns. And we've known for a long time, Ajna, which is the name of our space, which represents the third eye, it's a portal. And it do what it want to do. It do what it want to do when it wants to do it to whoever is in this household, whether you
Yeah.
just come visit for one time for an event or for us living in this household. So first and foremost, Tommy, y'all may see him sometimes. He's the one that likes to be on camera.
Tommy's the black cat.
He's the black cat, right? Whole Negro out here in these streets. He
Yeah.
goes outside at night and tears up the neighborhood. But he got his ass whooped like, what, 2-3 months ago?
Yep.
You had to nurture him.
Yeah. And I was scared because Tommy gets into fights all the
Yeah.
time, but he ain't never been toe up like that.
Yeah, he was done up. And me and him kind of got like a brotherly type of relationship.
Yeah.
One minute I'm rubbing him, the next minute I'm kicking him off the bed or kicking him
Yeah.
out the sink or where he shouldn't
Yeah.
be. So we kind of go back and forth. And he kind of does the same for me when he knows I'm in a rough emotional spot. He'll be right up under me just for that moment to be able to absorb some of my energy.
Right.
And then with Tithel, she has also evolved in certain ways where if you ever been to this house, you probably never seen Tithel,
Yeah.
the oldest animal, right, in the house.
Yeah, she's 13 years
And
old.
yeah, she used to pretty much live upstairs in the,
Yeah.
I guess, the little attic storage space. And one day after what was going on
And she
with,
would only come down at nighttime.
only come
'cause
down
she
and
thought she was invisible.
thought she was invisible. That's when she
Yeah.
would get in the bed. Mind you, it took her 2 months to not run away from me.
Yeah.
And then pretty much the past 3.5 years to get to the points where we at now where she know I'm a part of this household. But after what happened with Tummy and we was like, I guess everybody in this house is evolving. I'm like, what you think Tithel need to learn? And he was like, I don't know. I'm like, maybe she needs to also be able to push past fear before she leave this life cycle.
Yeah.
So we put a barricade to the steps so she could no longer go up the steps. And at a certain point,
Tied up the closet.
tied up the joint,
so
everything.
She can't hide in the closet.
We didn't even know if it was going to work because she done jumped over things and stuff like that before. But at a certain point, we realized that, you more so than me, that my role in her life, even though she wasn't as cushy and lovey-dovey with me as you over the past 3.5 years, my role was to suggest maybe she's supposed to get something out of this experience with you besides just, the energy you already give her,
Yeah.
which is I'm going to challenge you. And
Right.
you're gonna have to figure out a different level of comfortability in being uncomfortable. At first, she ain't like it. She was
Yeah.
running all over the house, but at a certain point, she done kind of acquiesced to what's happened, and she no longer runs from me. She
Right.
walks through the house all day, every day. You even said her quality of life has gone
Absolutely.
up as well. And then you got Tildor having, I mean, excuse me, you got Cleo, who has had to surrender to stillness.
Yeah.
She been moving every moment of her life until this event has happened.
Yeah.
And then her surrender to stillness has made you even more so surrender to relinquishing control, even when it comes to your kids as a pet parent. And me being a parent of a son, a human son,
Yeah.
but seeing what has to go into the day-to-day work of being a pet parent, I don't think pet parents get enough credit for how much attachment still develops as if it's actually a child, and how much more
Absolutely.
extra work. They can't talk. You
Right.
got to just figure it out. You got to be a veterinarian. How you say it?
Veterinarian.
Veterinarian, to be
Yeah.
able to even know some of the stuff that I never even heard of. Like, yeah, I know why that's happening because of this. It's like, damn, you got
Absolutely.
to really know the science. And I know it's like, bro, why are y'all talking about y'all pets right now to open up a conversation for relationship stuff? But it's interesting how Ajna has, I guess, kind of wiped away the boundaries of human being, cat, dog. Anything in this house is commissioned to evolve, to
Absolutely.
push past comfort, to get the most out of these experiences we are in these vessels. And we kind of do it as a family, even in not being able to talk to one another from human to pet.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really been interesting. And then also on top of that, us being able to navigate through, you having to give a lot of your time to
Yeah.
Cleo.
Yeah.
I've had to take a back seat. And we had a moment the other day where I kind of vocalized, like, I don't need all your time. I know where you at right now and how much you got to do for her, but I do need more than what I'm getting. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? How did that moment, how did it resonate when I said that?
It felt overwhelming
Mm-hmm.
because this may be one of the time periods of my life where I'm being required to give more than I have.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, it kind of felt like I was possibly failing
Mm-hmm.
because I'm trying to show up for Cleo, make sure she's okay. I'm trying to not lose myself in the process.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also don't want to make you feel like, you aren't seen.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, or it was, really hard to try to figure out how to navigate all of that fear, all of the confusion, and then me just, neglecting myself in the process, and then also feeling like I was neglecting you. And it was just like having to pull from places that I didn't have
Mm-hmm.
to show up and at least to try. And so, hearing you say that you needed more, or, that you needed at least what then would have been the bare
Mm-hmm.
minimum, felt like I had to pull from the depths of myself just to give that. Um, and it just made me feel like I was kind of, failing, but still wanting to do more to, show up for you.
Yeah, it's a few things to that, and I think that's where we're supposed to go with this conversation. You okay?
Yeah,
You need some tissue and stuff?
I got
You
it.
good? Oh,
Yeah.
you came prepared? Oh,
Yeah.
just sitting right there.
It was prepared.
A few things to what you just said, and we had a different strategy for this one. We'll get to this one probably next, but I think this is where we're supposed to go. So one of the things that comes up in my counseling sessions, I talk about processing styles a lot. And I got 10 different processing styles that I go through with my couples. Once again, processing styles is like our often unconscious, but our knee-jerk and automatic responses and disagreeable exchanges that can compromise our ability to register what our partner is saying accurately, right? And to effectively express what's on our heart in a way that's going to land in our partner's heart and not get stuck in their brain, right? I got 10 of these, but what you brought up kind of brings up for me one of them that I call premature / late deliverer. right? And I always tell my clients, and I've learned from our relationship, how important timing of a message is. So watching you first, you was at the Airbnb supposed to finish the book, right? We ain't even get to that. And maybe 4 or 5 days in, you get sick, like
Yeah.
extremely sick.
I had 103-degree fever for like 4 days straight.
Right. And this is the same time frame where you started to discover what was going on with Cleo.
Right.
And you at an Airbnb 3 hours away. It came
Right.
abrupt, so I couldn't like really just pick up and go to you.
And it was a winter storm where it snowed, so nobody, even if you wanted to
Right. I
come, you
couldn't even
couldn't
really
come.
make it to
Yeah.
you. Right. So you juggling all of that. And by the time you actually get home, it was probably like a week after the initial cold set on or whatever you want to call it. You got here, you still had some of it, right? So I already understood you was going to need to like recalibrate. But then once you got the information about Cleo and understanding how intense what she was experiencing was, and you told me like this, the surgery going to come probably next week. And then it's about a, what, 8 week process?
Yeah.
6 to 8 week process
Yeah.
for recovery, and the first 2 weeks are extremely hands-on and intense.
Right.
So understanding all of that, even though I knew there was going to be a time frame where I was probably going to have to take a back burner, and we've been in those positions before with each other. Well, we've known, like my mom passed, you knew, like when you was writing your book and Sasha Flower Skincare, we've talked about some of that. There are going to be different phases in a long-term relationship. Well, we got to kind of surrender and acquiesce to the fact I'm not going to be at the forefront.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. That doesn't mean my partner is doing me wrong or playing in my face. That's just the natural ebb and flow of the human experience.
Yeah.
So with premature, had I said it like when the surgery first happened, that would have been premature. I knew you needed to produce for Cleo from a place of depletion. You had never even recovered from being that sick, not being able to do what you had to do with the book. You was already working through depletion.
Right.
By the time I got to voicing myself, we was about a month and change into the process of me advocating for myself, not in a way where I'm saying I need to be here with Cleo because she needs you probably more than me right now. But I was able to advocate in that moment that the bare minimum is going to be enough for me right now, right? And I felt like I wasn't receiving that. So being able to understand when the message is supposed to come across to your partner in these uncomfortable moments, being able to deduce when they are in the place of depletion, and if you asking them to produce from that, we got to kind of scale down what we would normally get from a partner.
Right.
I can't ask you for 100% in a moment, in these series of moments when you're giving so much to Cleo. I got to deduce, all right, is 10% enough for me right now? Yeah. And if it is, I need to explain what I would like 10% to look like, which we was able to do in that conversation. So a lot of this I feel like boils down to those rough spots when as an individual, your partner may be going through something that you may not, knowing how to, one, stand proxy for them in understanding and patience, but also being able to speak up for what you need in those moments.
Yeah. And I think the other half of that, coming from my perspective, is being able to articulate when you have it and when you don't.
Yeah.
And when you have the energy to give, and when you are doing your best to give the energy, but then also just being as communicative as possible about what you are actually dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times we attempt to show up for everybody, and not we, people in general, try to show up for everybody and their parents and their kids and their spouses. And they may not even be conscious of the fact that they're already operating on 2%. And trying to give that 2% when you don't have it is a very odd place to, I guess, maneuver through and to show up from. And for you, it was more of acknowledgement, you know, coming to watch a movie with you before we go to bed like we normally do. It wasn't big things that you were asking for. And even in that, it's still important for the other spouse to have the capacity to say, this is how much time I have the ability to give. This is how much affection I have the ability to give. I'm still trying to give affection to myself, and even apologizing because there are moments where you will have to experience some love deprivation. And I think it's important to at least communicate. This is what I'm experiencing. This is what I'm going through. This is why I'm distant. I'm trying my best. And if there's something that you need from me moving forward, if I have the capacity to give it, I'll try. And even in our situation, although I didn't have the capacity, I still wanted to. I didn't want that to be an area that I was falling short in. So I made time. If that means that I have to wake up an hour earlier to get Cleo together so I have a few minutes to spend with you before the day, then that's what needs to happen. If I need to give her her medicine an hour earlier to make sure that I have time to spend with you, then that's what I'm going to do. If that means waking up 2 hours earlier so I can do my meditation, go brush my teeth. I wasn't even brushing my teeth and washing my face. I didn't have the time. And by the time the day started, I was just so exhausted. It was like, it don't even matter at this point. And so, and that is one of the things that leads into depression. So if you have to make time by getting rest sooner, waking up sooner so you can take care of yourself before you take care of other people, then it'll be a lot more helpful. And then I also had to switch my perspective and acknowledge that I'm not just showing up for my husband. I'm not just showing up for my dog, which is like my child. I'm in devotion, which is one of the things that you and I had an issue with. You wanted me to rub your back. I was so emotionally and mentally scattered that I was like, I can rub your back and be on my phone. And it wasn't computing that you wanted devotion in that moment. You wanted all of me, all of my time, or not all of my time. You wanted all of my energy, all of my
focus.
presence, all of my presence. And so, I hurt your feelings in that moment because I wasn't clear on what the expectation was. And honestly, I don't know that even if I was clear, I was still in a space to give it.
Yeah.
But by hurting your feelings, you were able to tell me like that hurt my feelings. I didn't want anything else from you. I just wanted you to rub my back for like 5-10 minutes and just be present with me. But by you telling me that, I recognize that that's also what Cleo needed from me. She needed devotion. I was putting her treatment packs on her leg and massaging her leg, but I was also on my phone doing my best to distract myself from all of the heaviness that was present. So it wasn't like I was just scattered to be scattered, anything to escape. And so that also taught me that while I'm putting the ice packs on her, to look at it as devotion, to be 100% present, to look at it as meditation too, to look at it as me honoring and serving another being other than myself. And I was able to also come back to you and acknowledge, I understand. I needed the word devotion to happen. If I would have just rubbed your back, then I wouldn't have gotten anywhere.
Yeah.
I would have rubbed your back and I would have kept suffering.
Yeah, facts.
But through that, you being collateral damage in that process allowed me to figure out how to maneuver with Cleo, to move slowly, to be more patient, but also more present. So cutting off the phone, playing meditation music, being fully there, like you always say, I'm speaking to people as if God is right in front of me. So rubbing your back as if God is the back that I'm rubbing, and being there for Cleo as if Cleo is God, that really helped me through a lot of the stress because I slowed down, I stayed present, and I started to look at everything like a devotion, a holy devotion.
Like a prayer.
Yeah.
And that's also some of the dividends of you reconditioning me, training me, and holding safe space for when I do need to vocalize something for myself. 2-year version of me, I probably would have never even said nothing. Felt the way, resentment built up. You wouldn't have had your moment to have me expressing that hurt my feelings, or I wanted something different, reflect back to you, not only what you weren't providing for maybe your husband or for Cleo, but when we really dug into the conversation, it was like, all right, where are you at in this? You're talking about everything you're giving to Cleo. I may be asking for some things for myself, but where do you feel like you may be dropping the ball and giving things to yourself? You was like, I need to go to the gym. I need to get out. You know what I'm saying? I need to do this, that, and the third, and I'm not giving myself those things. So me being able to vocalize it, and then I posted this this week where I talked about, and I've suffered from this, done this. I've kind of worked myself out of this space, but I realized me being as vocal as I am now, and I still wait for the right opportunity. I try to stay in that middle ground between having to be premature or late, because sometimes when the message is too late, because you done processed it for 3 weeks, 2 months, and you done worked out all the different parameters of what you feel. By the time you give it to your partner, you may be so far along in your understanding of this topic that by the time you present it to them, y'all so it's so much space between your understanding, they just finding out something has, pissed you off, they feel blindsided, and that alone, that energy can deflate y'all ability to get to a resolution or understanding. So I'm
Yeah.
in a nice little middle ground with my timing with that. But I realized that a previous version of myself, before I said what I said in the bed, before I communicated, what I needed in the other moment, as far as just, the bare minimum is enough. 10% is cool for me right now. I realized a previous version of myself would have tried to do the noble manipulation of, all right, well, if she not giving it to me, let me double up on the amount I give to her in hopes that she
Mm-hmm.
may remember or realize, well, damn, I'm not doing that for him, right?
Performing.
Performing. I used to do that in a lot of ways where I was just hoping that you would come around the curb in different arenas that I wasn't speaking up about. And I feel like a lot of couples do this. When I posted about this, a lot of people was like, damn, this just hit me in my heart because I actually do this as well. And as we may double up, if the other person may not get the signal, may not realize or remember, we take it as, well, damn, they really don't see me. They really don't care. Where, my nigga, you got shit going on. You may not even catch it as a signal when I come rub your shoulders like, damn, I need this right now. And you may not even think about the fact, well, I ain't rub him in a minute. And a lot of times we don't extend that grace in us trying to double up for the sake of y'all remembering or realizing, and then the resentment builds. The silence, us not wanting to speak up grows even more. Our fear of speaking up, all this shit just exacerbates. So me no longer being in that space, me being able to vocalize in that moment, you being able to like legit hear me out, not getting defensive. Not only were you able to understand, we were also able to meet in the middle where I'm like, okay, I'm not asking for every day. Nigga, I know you loaded right now with responsibility, and I got you on that 1 or 2 times a week. And you was like, you even asked me the specifics. You was like, all right, well, what does that look like? I'm like, maybe a little head rub, 5 minutes, 1 time a week,
Yeah.
maybe one cuddle session, and just come up to me and hug me every now and then. I'm good with that for right now. And he was like, I could do that. And
Yeah.
and from rip, you immediately started to shift. And it wasn't even like obligatory because you asked me. Your energy had already shifted because you had now shifted into the space of devotion with Cleo. I'm coming out of meditation 7 in the morning. You already got your music playing. You gleeful again, even though you still got the same amount of work and responsibilities. Now you gleeful, you happy. I said I feel like I got Candyss back. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because you had got Candyss back.
Right.
And now you are no longer drawn from a place of depletion. You still tired. It's still mad shit to do.
Right.
But the devotion started to spill back into yourself, and now you no longer pouring from an empty cup.
Yeah.
So you coaching me, us coaching each other and speaking up for ourselves, right? Opened up the door for you to be able to have that reflectory moment and me being honest about that hurt my feelings. I need a little bit more. You not getting defensive about it, us being able to figure out the logistics of what that looked like, and then your overall energy shift allowed you to be in that space where you could give to yourself as well as to us.
Yeah, I agree. I think the other part of that too is also recognizing that that can be taken really personally. I think in regular
Which aspect?
relationships, the part where it's like, okay, I'm going to give
The
more
double, yeah.
and hopefully they see
Yeah.
you ain't giving shit.
Or enough.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I think it can be taken personally when
Yeah.
the person doesn't see
Yeah.
that they aren't giving enough.
Mhm.
And I think one thing that is important to note is that sometimes it's such a tunnel vision
Yeah.
that you just aren't present.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's dissociation. It's dissociation, it's escapism, it's running. Even if it's me having the opportunity to not think about what's going on, that means I'm not even here. I'm not in the home. I'm not even in my body enough to feel the massage, to be able to embrace the hug. And so when these acts are
I ain't
happening,
think about that aspect.
yeah, when these acts are happening, it's almost like a jolt back into the body and the remembering of, I have a husband, the remembering of other people need me. There are other responsibilities that I have. And that part is kind of when you invite the person to remember, hey, I still need some things from you, it's also reminding them to not escape.
Yeah.
It's reminding them that other people are suffering when you do escape, when you disassociate. And so in those moments, my coping mechanism and my trauma response is to escape, run, block, anything to get away and out of the stressful moment. That's why I was addicted to
Right.
alcohol for
Right.
so long. So in this case, it will be food, having a moment where I can just like have a moment to enjoy some
Yeah.
food, some
Watch some
flavors.
TV. Yeah.
Yeah, to watch some TV, or, not even to do work, but just to not be present. I can fantasize all day long and never be in my body. I've been so good at that. I've been in meetings that have been hours long, debriefings in the military, and I'm not even there. I don't hear nothing they saying. I'm in a full out fantasy, living a whole nother life in a whole nother world with characters I've literally created in the mind. So when you are attempting to do more to have me acknowledge you, I'm not even in my body to feel
To
that
feel
that's
it.
what's happening.
Damn.
So it's like it really is, it always comes down to, are both people on the same page and are they operating the same way? Because everybody operates differently.
And the term keeping score has come up at certain points in our relationships where you felt like I was keeping score in certain ways with certain things. And it wasn't that, but there's still some validity to, and I think men tend to struggle with this maybe a little bit more, being that our train of thought is so linear. It is so calculated and numbers based and performance based and stats, metrics, like with store. We love our stats, with those stats around for our favorite player. So that's actually a part of how we interface with the world around us. And of course, a lot of times we'll bring that into our relationships. So I'm glad you brought that up, because if a man is not doing a vindictive type of keeping
For
score, but
sure.
if he's saying, all right, let me double up to not, make her uncomfortable. I don't want to start this conversation. Let me just double up to hopefully she'll get it. In that moment, it's like, as I'm rubbing your back, it's like, okay, this is 2 points. 2 points, hopefully leading to, if I hit 10, she'll remember like, oh shit, I ain't do this either. But that's a beautiful scope that you just opened up, that as I may be rubbing your back, I may think 2 points. You don't even feel that shit.
Right.
It's still 0 points, and not in a way where you trying to just be like what's the word, unappreciative. It just don't even register to you
Right.
as this man just massaged me, because you may be in your fantasy world and stuff like that. And then the other part, I also got to give you credit for, and you probably got to give yourself credit for, even before I may have got swallowed up into your responsibilities for Cleo. You remember what you prefaced this whole situation with before you had to do all this work for Cleo?
Yeah.
What'd you say?
I said, if at any point I don't show up for you or give what you need, just let me know.
Exactly. Which also made me feel safe.
Yeah.
And even though I know it could potentially be a uncomfortable conversation, we may argue, it could blow up. It could actually take more of your points if we got to go into some shit about this.
Yeah.
And then you still got to come back and give it to Cleo. But that was kind of echoing in my head that it's safe, bro. She already prefaced and gave the precursor that I'm open to if this happened. You had already made accommodations for that before we even got to the point where I had to use that in case of emergency break glass type of energy, right? So that's another thing, that when we know as individuals, because I've been dealing with some shit too, right, that I'll get into in a second. But in a long-term relationship, there's going to be seasons of lethargy, right?
Yeah.
Of lack of motivation for life, lack of inspiration and creation, lack of energy to get the bag, knowing bills got to get paid. Things pop up with your health, with the health of loved ones around you, and you got to get absorbed into that. We got to kind of think about these situations. This is the for richer or for poorer, and sickness and health. What's people that say that in their vows, but we don't really put any parameters in place to know how we gonna navigate those situations when they come up. And a lot of us don't have enough relationship stain to kind of figure it out on the fly while we in the thick of the shit. I've been going through waves of depression,
Right.
new waves of grief with my mom, new waves of grief with my son not being here, vision impairment, some of the same things that was happening in my left eye before I went blind. And I'm not claiming it's the same thing, but some of those same things have now been happening in my right eye. I've been having a lot of floaters, going to ophthalmologist on Monday, and all these different things have just triggered more me diving into source, right? Because neither of us just wallow in what we feel. It's like, all right, these are more opportunities to go home, even more to connect to my divinity. So it's that existential crisis of being a middle-aged man. Like she don't like me to say.
Don't say it.
I'm gonna say it just for the context of the conversation. I keep saying I'm breaking down, my body breaking down, and
You like to say falling apart.
I'm falling apart. And yes, that's partially me putting a spelling into the grid that's not necessary, but it's also juxtaposed with the reality that I'm 43 years old, and all of us at certain points, you're gonna get over that precipice of when you ain't have to worry about none of this shit. Now every day you wake up, something else is off, right? Yeah. So I kind of been in that space while you've been in this space, and I feel like we learning a lot about each other, how to navigate as individuals and as couples these points where life ain't lifing in a way that's comfortable. It ain't Miami right now.
Fact.
And a lot of times, well, as couples, we'll romanticize the Miami trips, the vacations, all this positive expansion. But we'll run from those spaces that we kind of both in completely different ways. But we kind of getting our ass whooped by life right now.
Yeah, for real. I want to touch on one thing before I get to this part. You mentioned something in regards to me giving you the opportunity to let me know if you felt something. And I think it's really important in relationships that we practice disarming our partners so they can feel safe. A lot of times our partners will want to bring very important things to us, but can potentially cause conflict. And if they don't feel safe in doing that because you are in a safe space and you haven't kind of laid a prerequisite that it's okay for you to bring those types of things to me, then it can create unnecessary conflict. And so one of the things that I do with you as my husband is if I know that it can be something that is a little touchy, I do my best to disarm you. So because in a lot of your past relationships, you have had to defend yourself. You have had to keep score. You have had to argue. You have had to defend yourself. And so I always want to make sure that in our moments that it's not something that you feel like you have to do. And you also haven't felt safe to share how you actually feel. A lot of times when men share what they feel, they're looked at as weak, sassy, they got too many emotions. Even like one of your exes was like, I can't tell who the woman and who not. And it's like, well, we all have emotion. And so one thing that I think is necessary in relationship is that you figure out the best way to disarm your partner and make sure your partner feels safe in them bringing something to you that could potentially cause conflict. And that makes sure that the conflict never happens. It kind of reminds the partner that love still lives here, even though we may be about to embark on a conversation that's going to be heavy or deeply uncomfortable. Maybe both of us are going to have emotions that go to many different places, but it's still a safe space for you to bring it to me. And I still acknowledge your efforts. I acknowledge all that you are trying to do. I acknowledge all that you are doing.
You just told me yesterday. I'm proud of you.
And what you taught me is to not use, what is it? Exact negatives? What is
Absolute
it
negatives.
Absolute negatives. So you always do this,
Never.
or you never do this. How that really causes a person to put all of their armor back on. And when a person is holding armor, it's not even them anymore. It's now ego. It's whoever they use to defend and protect themselves. And you're not even getting to the core or the pureness of who your partner is in that moment. You're not even getting to the core of what the issue
Yeah.
is. So I think that's really important for people to acknowledge.
Yeah, and you talked about the prerequisite disarm, and then there's also post-requisite disarm. And some of the things I've been able to come up with as a relationship counselor has been via our relationships, eureka moments we've had after we've had to have a knockdown, drag out argument.
Yeah.
One of which was the 5 communication highways. We've talked about this on a previous episode. I'm not going to hash that back out. But it's pretty much when you have a request, a need, a gripe, a want, to be able to communicate to your partner what you want them to do with the information.
Yeah.
And one of the main things that's come up a lot is it ain't always resolution. And this is from you to me. Most people would think a woman always want the apology. She always wants you to explain yourself. A lot of times you don't be wanting that. It's just, yo, I want to express that. I want you to just acknowledge and hold space for this before we go anywhere else, right?
Yeah.
You've coached me a lot on that. I've been able to help my clientele in the same way. There was a moment when I was expressing my needs the other day where you was giving me explanations, valid explanations, right?
Absolutely.
And they were helpful to even hear on that part. And at a certain point, I'm like, baby, I think I just want acknowledgement right now.
Right.
I think I just want you to say, okay, baby, I got you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he was like, you know what? You're right. I got you. You know?
Yep.
Not me being right in, what I was expressing, but in that moment, the post-requisite disarm. Because sometimes after we express the armor of how we may have approached situations in the past, where we have made missteps, either with ourselves or previous partners, can subconsciously sprout back out.
Yeah.
So me being able to have the recognition in that moment, what I really was asking for in the
Right.
expression, which was just the acknowledgement, even giving you the language I would have liked, what you immediately gave me back, that also disarmed on the back end.
Yep.
And it didn't turn into nothing. It immediately went into action. And it also,
And because you asked for what you wanted specifically, I had the ability to give it. I didn't have to guess.
Yeah.
And you were like, actually, I'm not going to leave this up to you to guess what I want,
Right.
because I was missing the mark.
right.
And you had to say, I would like to hear these words from you. And that gave me the opportunity to give you those exact words, shut my mouth, hold space
Yeah.
for you. And we went from
And,
there.
and you hugged me from the back right in that moment. He's like, what do you need right now? I'm like, I guess a hug.
Yeah.
And you hugged me from the back. And in that moment, it was also like the absolute negative didn't have a chance to come up. And even with what you just said, you wasn't getting it. Nigga, you ain't had the capacity to, like, it's too much shit
Right,
going
yeah.
on. So some people or a previous version of myself could have took that away, that you wasn't seeing that yourself. I also understood, make it easy for her. You know what I'm saying? Just like when we was about
Right.
to come in here, I'm like, all right, what we gonna wear? The thought kicked into my mind. That's another thing she has to think about. I'm like, I got it. I'll figure
Yeah,
out
you
what we
did,
gonna
yeah.
taking some of these things off our partner's plate when we understand that these are the seasons we in. And it also was able to, like, I guess, deconstruct the potential for absolute negative. Because even in me asking for the 10%, it wasn't like you wasn't giving me nothing.
Yeah.
I didn't bring it up in that moment, but some of the things that was going through my head in these moments where I was still vetting out if I was going to say something and when I was going to say something, with me working through the waves of depression and the grief, I'm outside. We got beautiful patio outside our crib that we don't spend a lot of time on. We're going to start to spend more time. But it's been really rough. And, I've been waking up between the hours of 3 and 7. They call that Amrit Villa, AMRIT, which means nectar. And then Villa means morning. So nectar of the morning, the hours between 3 and 7. And a lot of different spiritual modalities, they perceive that as a time when the veil is thinnest, when the subconscious and conscious mind are able to do a dance really effortless. The world is asleep. A lot of creatives will create during this time for that same reason. When
That's
you was
it.
writing your book,
Yeah.
a lot of times I will wake up in the middle of the night and you downstairs because that thing just coming through.
Yeah.
So a lot of my response to these waves and not purchasing them will be during that time. And one particular morning I had finished meditating and I just went outside and I'm just sitting there in the dark, and you had came outside with Cleo to let her go use the restroom. And you like, babe?
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there, I'm not really saying much. And you didn't really say much. You just kind of felt what time it was.
Yeah.
You just came and sat right next to me.
Yeah.
Like, you want to talk? I'm like,
It was
not
like
really.
4 in the morning.
4 in the morning, pitch black outside. And we just sat there and had the most intimate moment without even really needing to say much. I dropped a few tears. At a certain point, I did open up briefly about where I was at, which helped give you context of how to work with me through this as well while you navigating Cleo. So it wasn't even when I'm saying I need a little bit more that you're not doing nothing. A lot of times people will take the approach where it's all or nothing, where it's extremes. When I present, the other person may take it, well, I'm not doing nothing. I'm not saying that. We've worked through so many of these
Right.
moments where the first impulse is not to go to, well, damn, I'm not doing shit.
Yes,
We
right.
able to remember on both sides, these things are still happening. We are giving each other what we need. I'm just asking for specificity in the area that
Yeah.
I may not be getting it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really beautiful. And I think it's just so important because this is the first time where it feels like life is whooping both of our
Yeah,
ass.
simultaneously.
You know, where there feels like there's energies of depression present, or for sure energies of feeling overwhelmed with life and ready to give life the middle finger.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Let's do it.
because
The Michael Lowry middle
your
finger.
ass is doing way too much. I'm gonna need you to slow your roll.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important for, you know, partners to have a plan of action of how do
Before we get to it. Yeah.
like how do you show up in the moments where you and your partner are both going through it,
Yeah.
to where neither one of you really have a lot that you can give, but you still need each other. That's a very important conversation to speak about. What does that look like when I'm going through these types of moments? What do I have the capacity to give? And so what I did for you was I ran a bath,
Yeah.
and I got you some flowers, and I made you tea. I'm already at the grocery store. I can get the flowers. I'm already in the bathroom. I can run the bath. And I know you love tea. So that is requiring effort for me to do that. And that allows you to actually feel that that was some effort put in. Those small things matter, and being mindful of the invisible load that your partner is holding on to, the invisible load of responsibility, the invisible load of to-do lists, not adding to their list of things that they have to do, seeing if you can take some of those things off their back. And one thing that we ask each other pretty much every day is, what do you need from me? Is there anything that you need me to do? Any words that you need me to say? Just so it can allow your partner to feel into if there actually is something. Because if you are distracted with day-to-day things, you may not even recognize that you need something.
Right.
But that inquiry kind of pauses you and allows you to do some self-discovery and give them the opportunity to show up in ways that you really didn't know you needed.
Right. And then the very next day after you did that for me, that was what, February 12th?
Yeah.
And then February 13th. And I had already had this, I've been planning this all week, son, right?
Yeah.
I had already had planned to take us to the Golden State versus the Rockets game the day
Yeah.
before Valentine's Day to just celebrate our love. And we had a beautiful experience. And you said, like, bro, I needed
I
this.
did.
I needed to get out this
Right.
house.
I had so much fun.
Yeah, so even though it was planned months in advance, when we doing this work on individual levels, we let spirit work in ways that we can't see. Because I remember I'm looking at the prices, I'm looking at the seats, and it was 3 months ago. I'm like, all right, should I do this? Should I not do this? And I'm talking to you about it. I'm like, F it, I'm gonna do it. Having no idea that we would be in these seasons on a human level where you was gonna be able to hold me down the day before, and I already had my plan in the clip to give you the moment you needed the very next day. And I think that last thing I say is just the dispensation of humanity we in, you know, being in Kali Yuga and the destruction and the chaos and the presidential state and the state of the union or America or the world, whatever you want to call it. What's happening on so many levels is the people that's really doing this work, that's not hiding behind the drugs and the sex and all these other things.
Absolutely.
Y'all gonna find that there will be a lot more of these seasons that are gonna show up, and it may make you feel like I'm going backwards, I'm regressing, or maybe I'm not doing this thing right. It means you're right where you're supposed to be,
Absolutely.
because the lessons are being expedited, and that's going to come with the circling back around the programs that you felt like you already got through. I feel like I got through all the brunt of my mother's passing, and all of a sudden it come back in a whole different way, just as strong. The thing with Marty and all these other different things. So we got to also make accommodations while we in unions where this world is being torn apart for a new world to be developed, we got to understand there's going to be a lot more of these seasons, which gives us more reason. So let's map this out before we get to it. Let's put some shots up before the game actually comes into practice.
Yeah.
I think that's vital to be able to navigate through these seasons as a couple.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
So once again, we freestyled another episode.
we
we never
did.
even introduced this episode.
sure
So you
did.
can go ahead and say it. You can introduce and close out.
Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of God Is Me Again podcast. I'm Candyss Love.
I'm your boy Brickcitibuddha. And before we close out the episode, just kudos to y'all, how well y'all been supporting. One of our episodes, I think we had 36,000 views on YouTube, not to mention Spotify, and all the posts going viral on social media, Facebook, IG
you
as
got
well.
like so many posts going viral right now.
Like
on
10
Facebook.
posts from the podcast going viral on both platforms. So we just appreciate how y'all been holding us down. Continue to hold us down. Like, comment, subscribe, favorite, share, spark conversation, make your think pieces, remix the rails, do whatever you got to do to support this platform, because we're going to do our best to continue to provide balanced content and conversations that are not being had in this current podcast arena.
Yep.
Got anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Hit me up for counseling. I am accepting new clients. You accepting new clients right now?
Mm-hmm.
Accepting new clients. Purchase the book. Remember who the F y'all are. Sasha Flowers. Make her send these orders out. Cuzzo, we got you. We're going to send your order. Yeah, I think that's it.
That's it.
Love and light, y'all. Thank y'all
Bye,
for listening.
y'all.